Joining us now on 98 Not Out is the one and only Johnny Barran, who many of you will know from commentating on venues like Radio 5 Live. And also, if you're a particular cricket badger, you would know that Johnny called the shots on the ICC World Cup final in 2019, which England memorably won. Currently, he's working for Flow Sports and covering this West Indies versus Sri Lanka T20 series. Welcome to 98 Not Out, Johnny Barran.
Darren, well, thank you very much for having us on. Absolute pleasure.
So let's start with what you're doing immediately. West Indies, Sri Lanka. I gather a bit of a game went on last night.
Yeah, I mean, the most extraordinary game of cricket, really, that I'm not sure if it ebbed and flowed, but I was did my opener a bit earlier on Flow Sports. And one of the things I said is that the West Indies kind of played part of the game. They played like the dream team. And then there were parts of the game where they're a little bit more like the Harlem Globetrotters. It was just an extraordinary performance. I mean, it just had everything. It had hat tricks, 7 consecutive balls disappearing into the stands for 6. It was extraordinary. And highest, I think, the most runs scored in a power play. And Chris Gayle broke a world record, becoming, I think, yes, he reached the heady heights of 28 ducks in T20 cricket, and he now holds a world record. So there we go.
That's along with the most 6s in T20 cricket, and
yeah, there is that as well.
All the other things.
That yesterday.
So, I mean, as you mentioned, Sri Lanka, the bowler Dhananjaya. What is he going to be remembered more for, the hat trick or the 6 sixes?
Yeah, I mean, it was extraordinary. He's just come back into the side, and the hat trick was a really good one. Of course, Gayle getting that first ball duck, and then picking up Nicholas Pooran, who's been an absolute, he's hit the ball into large swathes of the world in various T20 and T10 competitions in recent weeks. And then literally the following over, he suddenly found himself disappearing to all parts of Antigua. It was an extraordinary piece of hitting by Kieran Pollard. Very calculated as well. He knew exactly what he was doing, but it was a very incredible game to watch.
He's only the 3rd person to hit 6 sixes in an international match. I read that somewhere this morning. I think it's Yuvraj Singh, and is it Herschel Gibbs, the other one?
That's right. Herschel Gibbs did it in the World Cup in 2007 against the Netherlands. A tiny ground on that occasion. Yuvraj Singh stuck the Stuart Broad into the stands on 6 occasions. Ravi Shastri did it, I think, in a first-class match or a game, but not in an international. And then you go, of course, way back to Gary Sobers, who was the first person to do it at Swansea back in the 60s.
Malcolm Nash was the bowler, wasn't he?
Malcolm Nash, indeed, who lived a very tidy career off the back of immortality by being smoked all over the place by Gary Sobers.
Well, you'd be very busy on the after-dinner circuit, I suppose.
Yeah, well, he was.
So, a strong start to the series and entertaining cricket. On a serious note, West Indies will have one eye on the T20 World Cup like everyone else does this year. And that side was a side, and bearing in mind the West Indies have got a pretty decent recent track record in T20 World Cups. Just ask Ben Stokes. But they were without Andre Russell, Narain, and Shimron Hetmeyer for this, and still ran away entertaining winners. Just on this early evidence, do you think they're one of the favourites for the World Cup?
I think they're a very dangerous side, the West Indies. I mean, very bizarrely, the other side to this story is actually, if you look at their world ranking, they are 10th in the world rankings. Wow. And it's only because of the qualification period, the way it ran. Actually, otherwise, if it wasn't for the fact that the ranking, they were, I think, in the top 7 when the ranking system finished. Otherwise, they'd have to qualify, as Sri Lanka have to pre-qualify. So you take it on that evidence. You think, well, they're 10th in the world. How could they possibly have a chance of winning a global tournament? The reality is, often, the West Indies have always struggled to get sides together across all formats, their best players, because often they're engaged in other tournaments. But when they get the best players on the park, they're very, very good at playing tournament cricket. And that's what happened in 2016. And that's what happened in 2012 as well. I think they've got every chance. You know, they have 9 players who are currently playing or have got contracts in the IPL. Sri Lanka, of course, went into this series with no players picking up a contract in the IPL. And they have some very, very dangerous, experienced customers. And if they get the hitting and the pace of somebody like Dre Russell back into the side, and of course the talent of Hitmire, and there are others who could well stick their hands up as well.
You mentioned the Universe boss, who's broken off his stint in the PSL to come back and play this T20 series for the West Indies, and then he's going to return. And I've just read a story only just now that the PSL has been put on hold because of virus fears. I mean, he's still going strong. I mean, I know he got a golden duck yesterday, but what's he? He's pushing 42 now. He's almost like the Darren Stevens of international cricket.
Darren Stevens, I think, is coming rising 70 coming into this. Bless him. Gayle is 41 going on 42. Last time he played for the West Indies was back in the World Cup in 2019. But he's in good form. He had a really good last IPL that took place in Abu Dhabi, well, and across the UAE before Christmas. And his PSL numbers have been really strong as well. I still think he's got plenty to offer. Whether that's at 3 or whether he might be able to break into that top 2, time will tell. The only difficulty for a legend like Gayle is that, he missed the ball on a couple of occasions in the field, and just the spotlight will turn on him if he doesn't put numbers together quickly. When he last made his big comeback going into that World Cup in 2019, he had this most extraordinary performance against England, of course, in the one-day competition, which finished 2-2, and he literally, smoked the ball to all parts of Grenada, Barbados, and just about everywhere else. So I think, it's important that he gets a score in the next 3 games, really, you feel, for Chris Gayle, if he's going to continue, going towards the tournament.
I was going to ask you about that England tour to the West Indies. You were covering that, and it sat alongside Tino Best, and Tino Best said, "Mind the windows."
Yes, he did. It was just the power hitting. I think both the 2 innings I remember most, his one in Barbados, I think in the second ODI, and again equally that knock in Grenada was quite incredible as well. He still has all the talent, and in those shorter formats, he can continue to perform. And will he make the World Cup? Somebody like Shimron Hitmire, you feel will push him close in that top order, or somebody along those lines. But he has every chance.
Just thinking about Tino, we mentioned Malcolm Nash a little while ago, dining out on one incident. I suppose the same with Tino Best with Mind the Windows.
Well, it's the title of his autobiography, I'm pretty sure. Absolutely. Yeah, Tino doesn't mind that whatsoever.
And what else is on the horizon for Johnny Barran? Have you got any plans for this summer? It looks like a season is sort of coming together now with restrictions being eased. It looks like we're going to get a reasonable domestic season this year after a bit of the scratch effort last year. Have you got any involvement lined up?
Yes, I mean, I'm hoping that we have a pretty good domestic season. There are a few concerns in the early stages over COVID protocols in terms of how many voices will be allowed at each game. But of course, there's a buoyant 100 tournament. You've got all the county championship, the T20s. The Royal London Cup comes a little bit further on in the summer. I'm doing Voice of God at the Oval for their T20 games, and very much looking forward to being part of the kind of BBC setup as the season develops.
Talking about the Oval and Surrey, I mentioned to our good friend of the show, Mark Butcher, that I was chatting to you today. A few of the things he said I can't repeat on air, but he did say, one thing you should know about Johnny, if it wasn't for him, I would have never recorded my first album. Really?
That's really kind of Butch, and likewise, actually, if it wasn't for Mark Butcher, I wouldn't have got anywhere near having a career in sports broadcasting. In my other life, Darren, I've worked in entertainment and music for many years. That's basically been my primary source of work and income. And one of the projects that I had was a was running the live music at 2 or 3 London venues, one of which was the Café de Paris, Coco in Camden, Clapham Grand, Pigalle, and various other spots in London. And we just used to put on the live music shows for these, bring various artists involved. We'd have, and yeah, it was Mark used to come down as a fan, enjoyed what we did. And we asked him as a musical guest on one evening. He was absolutely fantastic. And he went on to build a very good relationship with all of the band that were involved. And if you like, the band, my house band, if you like, then became his house band. So it worked very well for both of us. He developed his music quite nicely. I got a gig at Surrey, thanks to him. And then, Mark Church giving me the opportunity once he was sort of asked by Butch, and that's where it came from. So yeah, and I've over the years, I've done concerts at the O2 that's featured Mark Butcher, and loads of other things. But no, I had a very, very small part in his journey as a musician. But I think he's a wonderfully talented guy. He's a fantastic guitarist in his own right. If you talk to most people, most guitarists in the industry, they really do recognise him as a really solid bluesman. Quite fantastic.
Yeah. So when we do 98 Not Out live, so obviously you're going to be the promoter. We'll have a bit of music from Butch.
Oh yeah, there are lots of other sportsmen that can hold the note as well. Barry McGuigan has got a fantastic voice.
David English, when we had him on, when I could even begin to get a word in edgeways. But he was saying about the best, so at his Bunbury things, whenever he has his festivals and the whole world goes down there, and he has a karaoke competition, doesn't he? And apparently, by a country mile, the best singer on the Bunbury karaoke is Johnny Bairstow.
Now, I must admit, I've never worked with Johnny Bairstow. Graham Swan, I know, can sing to a certain level, I think, but
yeah.
Bairstow, yes, interesting.
Yeah, so yeah, something we'll have to work on. All right, excellent. Lovely chatting to you, Johnny, and we shall be catching up with you again over the summer and seeing what's going on. But in the meantime, if we want to follow this West Indies Sri Lanka series and hear your dulcet tones, what's the best place to find it?
Well, the show that we produce for Flow Sports covering the series, it's on YouTube. Well, it's on Flow Sports live, but it's also, for those outside of the Caribbean region, you can find it on the Flow Sports have a site on YouTube, and the show is done on a rolling basis. So you can find me there in warts and all. And yeah, it was a good one today. Actually, we had Clive Lloyd on with us and Philo Wallace. So plenty of runs and then little of.
Excellent. Well, lovely chatting, and we urge everyone to follow this series because it does look like it's going to be a cracker. How many more games are there in the T20? Is it 3? There's
2 more games in the T20. Then there's 3 ODIs and 2 Test matches, and they're all taking place in Antigua. But after this sequence of 3 games here, they then move to the Viv Richards Stadium for the rest of the tour.
Oh, because currently they're in the Piers Morgan Stadium.
They are. They're currently in the ground made famous by Alan Stanford. Absolutely.
Oh, my God.
Ghost of the past, I think, safe to say.
He's still banged up, isn't he?
I think he's still got another 700 or 800 years to go, I think, because his sentences don't run concurrently, do they? They just add each one on to each one. So yeah, I don't think we'll be seeing him for a while, it's safe to say.
Maybe that's something we can work on for a future show, the Stanford story and the tawdry tale of his millions and whatever happened. But anyway, in the meantime, Johnny Barran, many thanks for joining us and great to see you.
Great stuff, Darren. Thank you.